basically, our goal is to, well, our motto is love God, love NC State and Meredith. So it's pretty simple, and it is just that simple. Our goal is to make sure that students feel loved and that we love the Lord well, and that we are encouraging students to do that. So yeah, pretty simple. We also say that we're a place for the convinced and the unconvinced to learn more about God. And so that just means that wherever you're at in your faith walk, whether that's, you know, you're pretty confident, or you're like, I honestly have no idea, we are super glad that you're here and that you're participating, and we welcome you, we welcome your questions, we welcome everything that you bring, and we're excited to have you wherever you're at. So yeah, that's a little bit about RUF. And so to start us off, we do this thing every large group. It's called trivia. I don't know if you've heard of trivia before. It's pretty exciting. So trivia, I come up with a random question to ask you guys that's somewhat related to current events. And the first person to text me the right answer to my question wins an exciting prize. So I'm going to start off with that. I'll first give you guys my number. So my number is 910-779-9471. Again, that's 910-779-9471. Okay, so I'll give everybody a second to pull it up. And without much further ado, I will ask the question. So as you guys know, yesterday was Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. So what was the first state to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day as a holiday? Go ahead and text me your best answer, and whoever wins will get a prize, like I said. While we're waiting on you guys to answer the questions, I have 3 announcements for y'all. So the first one is StateCo 2020. So that is this weekend. If you're not already signed up, definitely sign up. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's October 17th. Check-in starts at 9:30, and we'll be done around 3:30 for this conference. So if this is your first year at RUF, or even your first time coming, we usually have an actual fall conference every year where we go to the mountains. It's super fun. Obviously, we can't do that this year. So this is the next best thing. We're going to go to a church. We're going to have a time together where we can really just have a focused experience of learning more about the Lord and growing in Him. This obviously going to be super exciting. We're really thrilled. I'm very pumped for it. So we hope you guys can come. There'll be you get t-shirts and a meal, I think. And the registration fee is what is it, $15? $15. Okay, very small amount for dinner and a t-shirt, if you ask me. All right, so next announcement, tennis with the interns. So you got to get that physical activity in. Want to have a one-on-one, you can do both at the same time. You can play tennis in Pullen Park with Grace and Andrew. Super exciting. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m. So if you want to get in a little workout, definitely come out and hang out with them. It's just a really good time to just spend time with our amazing interns. You really don't want to miss it. They're really fantastic. And also with other people that come out. So yeah, you definitely should show up to one of those times. It's a lot of fun. And also you can just, if you don't want to play tennis, you can just like take a study break, hang out, chill. It's a really great time. Last announcement is the RUF Halloween party. So RUF Halloween party will be on Halloween. I know, big surprise. It starts at 6:30 at Atwater, and there will be a costume contest, hors d'oeuvres, and a secret game that will be announced. It's going to be super fun. A lot of people are putting in a lot of work to make this happen, and they're doing a really good job. So we're pretty excited for that. Definitely come out. Our biggest October event minus StateCo. Honestly, we have a lot of big October events. So definitely come out for one, if not all of these things. We would love to have you and see you there. So yes, without further ado, I will go ahead and announce the winner of trivia as soon as I figure out who that is. Okay, I'm confused. I've got dates here. Some of you guys are giving me dates, not states, but that's okay. That's all right. Maybe that was my problem. Okay, so plot twist. Nobody got the right answer. So I will do the next closest answer. The first person to get it close is, I'm going to read out your number. You tell me if it's you. So the answer is South Dakota. First person to get it close, I'll read out your number. It's 812-569-3623. Who are you? Oh, congratulations! Woohoo! Amazing. Okay, so your exciting prize. Give me 1 second. So you have a choice, actually. Don't look at that. So the first option, Chuck is not an indigenous person, but these are Chuck. You can make custom Chuck chocolates or ice if you want to. It's really exciting. A really exciting prize. I love this one a lot. But if that's a little too weird for you, we also have these cool card holders. Chuck won't be offended if you don't choose his face in Chuck form, Chuck no form. But take your pick. What do you want? The face. Okay, good choice. Good choice. Wow, she's already. You're in. You're in. Okay. Sorry, I don't think my card will reach super far, but there you are. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I think that's all I have for you guys, unless I missed anything. Pretty sure I didn't. But welcome, guys. We're super excited to have you, and we'll turn it over to the worship team.
All right, everyone, let's stand and sing. There is a fountain filled with life, drawn from the sea, and sinners plunge beneath that flood, lose all their guilty stain. Lose all the guilty stain. Lose all the guilty stain. And sinners plunge beneath that flood. Lose all their guilty stain. The dying deep rejoice in thee, our fountain in his face. There may I go on as he washed all my sins away. Washed all my sins away. Washed all my sins away. No more wash all my sins away. Dying land, our precious blood, forever loses all the ransom to God. Be saved to sin no more. Be saved to sin no more. Be saved to sin no more. By faith I saw the sea, thy flowing wounds supply. Redeeming love has been my theme, and shall be till I die. And shall be till I die. And shall be till I die. Redeeming love has been my theme, and shall be till I die. Lord, in stormy waves I stand, and cast away am bound for the promised land. Shifting winds, nor voices to reach thy helpful shore. Take the storm will clean and death, felt and fear no more. I am bound, I am bound for the promised land. I am bound, I am bound for the promised land. Shall I reach that happy place and be forever there? Shall I see my Father's face and in His bosom? I am bound, I am bound for the promised land. I am bound, I am I am bound for the promised land. I am bound, I am bound for the promised land.
Let's pray. Father God, that is such a good reminder. Today on this Tuesday, Father, when it already seems like such a long week, there's always been so much to think about and muddle through. And Lord, it's so comforting to know just no matter what is going on right now, we're all bound for the promised land. We're all going to be with you one day. We're all going to just dwell in your house forever and gaze upon your beauty and be in unity, Father, and everything will make sense and everything will be right. And Lord, that's something that I've had to really cling on to this week, and I'm sure that all of us need to cling on to that, so that we would receive hope from being together today, from hearing what you have to say through Chuck. I pray that you would bless him and give him boldness as he preaches the word, and pray that you would open our hearts to receive what you have to say. We love you, Lord. Thank you for the crickets and just the weather and being outside and for music. I love you. Amen.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Chuck.
It is so good to see you and so good to be here with you. Thank you for taking the time to come out. Thank you, Frat House, for letting us come and be here. Just in case you're wondering, this is actually not a fraternity house, nor is it a house for guys to live in, but it is nicknamed Frat House because it used to be that, but it's now a bunch of girls who are letting us come and use their property. So thank you all for that. We want to meet in person as much as is wise and it is as possible for us. NC State said we couldn't meet on campus this week, but we can meet on campus next week. So next week, we're going to be back on campus in the West Campus Amphitheater. We'd love for you to meet with us there. But we're thankful that we could be together this week because being together to worship is a way that we grow. And it's important to remember that because it helps us to see why relationships are important. We grow in relationships. The way that you are transformed as an individual is not you going off by yourself, but by you gathering around other people who help you to grow. And so we're looking at relationships because relationships are a big part of how we grow as people, how we grow as individuals. Tonight we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 31. Which before we read it, before Caitlin comes up to read it, I want to frame it because I know that it has a lot of baggage connected to it. Proverbs 31 is a passage that sometimes has been used as a club on people, saying that you have to be like this. Sometimes it's viewed as this chauvinistic passage that has been put onto people by men, saying, from a man's perspective, this is what an ideal woman is like. But let me preface our reading with this. First, this passage that we're about to hear is not the words of a man, it's the words of a woman. What we see in this passage is a king who wrote down his mom's word and brings them out for everyone to see. He saw the wisdom of his mother's voice, treasured it, and brought it out for others, and God treasured it too and put it into his Bible. So this is not the perspective of a man that we are going to hear, but a perspective of a woman on what is wise to do in terms of marriage. But the second thing I want to point out is that this is a passage on wisdom. When you hear some of the things that are talking about tonight, it's easy to start thinking in terms of a checklist, but this is not a checklist. This is a wise way to think about life, a wise way to think about dating. And so when you hear this passage, it's easy to get tensed up saying, like, am I being evaluated based on what I hear in this passage? And that's not the goal of it. That would be hammering you over the head with this passage. But the goal of this night is to give us some landmarks for wisdom. What is it that we should be looking for in people's life? So I wanted to frame that because this passage has some baggage. But at this time, I'm going to invite Caitlin to come up and read for us the passage, and then we'll reflect on it after that.
Right. I think you can read it. Proverbs 31. The words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to these who destroy kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel, or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. An excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm. All the days of her life, she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff and her hands to the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her households are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself, her clothing and linen in purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes the linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates.
Thank you, Caitlin. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be gathered tonight and to reflect on your word. We pray that in the midst of all on in our life and around us, we could have ears for you and eyes to see what you have us to see. We pray this for Jesus' sake. Amen. All right, So we're talking about relationships, and last week we talked about dating. We began to talk about the idea of dating with the question of what is it that's driving you in dating? Are you being driven by fear or faith? Do you have a confidence that your Heavenly Father knows your need more than you do? If you do, then that enables you to be wise in life. But now we're going to begin to look at what it looks like to wisely date. I said last week that I don't want to give you rules. Rules aren't helpful. But what I want to do is give you some wise ways of thinking about dating. And so tonight what we're doing is we're listening to a mother tell her son what she thinks is some of the most vital things that he could take away. Your parents all have certain things that, they beat you over the head with, things that they really see are important for you to know. And they're probably popping up in your mind right now. Like for me, I know that there's one thing that my mom really wants me to know, and that's that Carolina is bad. She went to Duke, she didn't go to state, but she taught me from an early age, ABC, anybody but Carolina. She's happy that I'm here because this is a school that is not Carolina and doesn't like Carolina too. She buys my kids Duke t-shirts or Duke sweatshirts or NC State t-shirts or NC State sweatshirts, but she says she will never allow them to go to Carolina. She's driven that in, and we have certain things that our parents want to drive into us. And King Lemuel's mom wanted him to get this message. And so what we have here is this chapter that includes in it a poem. Verses 10 to the end of the chapter is a poem, and it's actually an acrostic. It spells out in Hebrew. And each line starts with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So it makes like an A to Z list of how to think about this issue. And so she obviously took a lot of time to think about how to present this message to her son so that he would remember. This is something that she sees is vital for her son to know. And what is it that she wants him to see? What is it that she wants her son to treasure in his heart? That he needs to look primarily at character when he's evaluating who he wants to marry. The primary thing she wants him to see is that he can't trust anything else when he's thinking about who to date except for character. And so she begins to describe to her son what it looks like to have a kind of character that he could trust in. And the way that she breaks it down is this. In verse 10, it says, an excellent wife who can find. That isn't like a rhetorical kind of snarky comment saying, you can't find a good woman. That's not what she's saying. She's saying that this is something that is a treasure, something that you have to look for. It's not going to just stumble into your life. You have to be thoughtful about how you can draw into your life someone who has strong character. And that's the way that she describes this person. When she says an excellent wife who can find, that word excellent doesn't actually mean just like excellent. But what it means is strength. That word translated excellent is half the time in the Bible translated strong in talking about armies. So there's a word of power and strength when she's thinking about this wife that this person should be looking for, her son. And when she's thinking about strength, she isn't thinking in terms of physical power. She's thinking of strength of character. Some of your translations may translate a noble wife who can find. But it's not just that she's kind of just a generically good person. There's a strength about her. You look at verse 17, it says that she clothes herself with strength. In verse 25, it says strength and dignity are her clothing. And the strength is not this physical power, but a power of character. A character that endures, a character that lasts, a character that is felt, a character that impacts those that are around her. And the mom says, this is something to treasure. This is something more valuable than jewels. This is hitting the jackpot, looking for someone who has a strong character like this. And here she's trying to give her son dating wisdom. And that's what we need to see here is the wisdom for dating. Because we often don't date with character in mind. We often date with fun in mind, right? I mean, think about the way that you evaluate a date, or think about the way that our culture speaks about evaluating prospective mates. You talk about the person being cute, or the person being sexy, the person saying, we have so much fun together, or they really get me. What are we talking about? We're talking about our experience in the moment of this person. But then how does that impact us? We begin to think how we should become more dateable, right? We want to be fun. And so we begin to think, how can I change the way that I live and my personality, my sociability in order to be more fun? Or we get so stressed out about trying to plan the perfect date so that it is fun, so that the person will think we're fun. Or we incessantly diet to make ourselves more attractive, or we spend a lot of time and money on our clothes so that we can have people notice us and want to ask us out on a date, or we hurt ourselves, changing ourselves, whether that's internally criticizing who we are because we don't think that we're fun or charming, or attacking our body because we don't think that we are attractive. But what are we working on? We're working on the exterior, working on the charm, we're working on the beauty, but this is how she frames the passage. Look for someone who has strong character at the beginning of this poem, and at the end of the poem, in verse 30, what does she say? Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. This mom is framing what she's trying to get into her son's head with this idea that look for character, but don't be deceived by charm and beauty. Here, that word for deceit is a word used in Hebrew to talk about an empty promise. She's saying that charm is an empty promise. Being around someone who's fun is an empty promise. That promise is they're going to make you have a joyful life, but they don't deliver that in the end. Beauty is vain and empty. And what that is often used to describe idols in the Bible. It's saying that it's something that you can't trust or rely on, like you can trust or rely on the steadfast faithfulness of God. This mom says, don't focus on beauty, don't focus on charm. Those things are not going to be what is something you can trust in your life. You want to find someone who has character that counts. You may wonder, why is this important? Why is it important in thinking about this in terms of dating? Well, think about it this way. This is the very last chapter on the biggest book of wisdom in the Bible. So the whole book is telling you, here's wisdom, here's wisdom, here's wisdom. And the crescendo of the book is this woman. The crescendo of this book is this woman who is being brought out as an example of a wise life. And what does it say about this woman? That charm is deceitful, that beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is. The book of Proverbs frames wisdom around that idea, the fear of the Lord, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And here we see someone who is taking that idea of wisdom and bringing it out into her life. And so her life is a walking demonstration of wisdom. But that wisdom isn't inherent to her. It's not that she was born from the wisdom gene, that she just happened to get lucky genetically with wisdom. No, wisdom is something that wasn't born in her, but brought into her, right? Because how is wisdom formed? It says from the fear of the Lord. And that idea, the fear of the Lord, doesn't mean being afraid of him, but it means sustaining a joyful and astonished awe and wonder at who he is. Fear of the Lord is a living, vital relationship with God that changes you. Fear of the Lord is seeing his beauty and his glory and saying, I want to be like that. And so the fear of the Lord creates wisdom because you see God's character as beautiful and you say, I want to have that kind of beauty too. You see his generosity and you want to be generous. You see his grace and you want to be gracious. You see his justice and you want to be just. And so the relationship that you have with God frames the way that you want to live out in the world because you think that he is beautiful. You fear him. You think that living like him in this world would be beautiful. Your character is ultimately formed by what you find is beautiful, by what you love. And so this woman has had her character formed not out of strength of will, but out of her heart. By loving the Lord, she has become like the Lord in the way that she lives in this world. Now think about it in terms of marriage. The person that you marry forms you too. In verse 11, it says that the heart of her husband trusts in her. Now, every instance in the Bible when trust and heart go together, it's talking about one of two things. Whenever trust and heart are together, it's either talking about the relationship of a human with God or the relationship of a husband and wife. And why is it that those two things are the only ways that trust and heart go together? It's because marriage can be a deeply powerful thing. Marriage is a way that you say to somebody, you are beautiful and I want to be with you. And that begins to shape, form you, change you. Who you marry will shape you. When you're marrying someone, in essence, you are giving them your heart and saying, form this heart. So that's a big thing to think about when you're dating, that you are taking your character, you're taking your heart, and you've entrusting it to that person. And what would you want that person to be? Who is it that you would want to trust with your heart? You would want someone who was like God, right? Who, when they see your weakness, isn't going to shame you, but is going to be gracious to you. But isn't going to leave you alone, but is going to come alongside you and encourage you and help you to grow. And this verse is describing that kind of relationship. The husband can trust his heart to her. He can bring his heart to her and know that it is going to be for his gain, that she is going to help him to grow as a man and as a human. And when we're thinking about dating, we have to keep that on the forefront of our mind, that the people that we enter into relationship with are going to form us. And so we want to enter into a relationship with someone we can trust our character and our heart and our life to. Because as you're around them, you will become like them. It's crucial to see because often backwards with this. Oftentimes we start out with someone who we think is fun and we just continue to hang around them. One comedian says this, in a sense, we are all like a flow ride a song. The more time you spend with us, the more time you see how special we are. Social scientists refer to this as the flow ride theory of acquired likability through repetition. If you hear that flow ride a song enough, you're going to like it. And that's true with people. The more that we are around people, the more that we will begin to like someone. And this happens in dating. You come into someone's life and you initially have this fun experience with them and you begin to like them. But what happens over time is you begin to see that there's problems, there's issues, there's deficits in character. But you say, he's a fun guy. We enjoy time together, but he only really wants to hang out when it's convenient for him. Or he always drops me at the drop of a hat when his friends want to get together. He keeps pressuring me to go further and further physically and says that's the only way that he's going to experience love from me. But I like him. I love him. But that's because you've been around him. Because you've been around him, your heart has begun to love him. That's the way that God has made our hearts. But the problem is now you're in a relationship where you didn't evaluate character up front. And yet your heart is going to be shaped by this person. We have to be careful when we're entering into a dating relationship to not just come in with the idea of who is fun, who will make us have a good time. Because we can enjoy and love a lot of different people. But the wise way to approach dating is to come in with this framework of character. Who is it that I want to entrust my heart to? Who is it that I want to shape my character? Character drive our decisions. We want someone in a relationship with us who's going to make us a priority, where we will feel wanted, not neglected, who will see our value inside and out, who is trying to grow spiritually as a person and taking responsibility in their life, who keeps their promises. These are things that we should come in with a bar that if they don't meet these promises, whether I like them or not, I don't want to entrust my heart and life to them. Marriage is such a powerful relationship. You need to be picky when it comes to character. This is what I mean by appropriately picky. Who is it that you will entrust your heart to? You want to entrust your heart to someone that reflects the Lord into your life. And this is not just a sense of how do they treat me, it's also a sense of how they will form you. Your character can never change alone. It can be most powerfully to help your character to grow is the person that you marry. And so when you marry, you want to find someone that you respect their character because you can see the way that they will help you grow in your character. You want to have someone that their character is something you aspire to, because their character will either become your blessing or your bane. Look at verse 3. The wise mother warns her son, do not give your strength to women whose ways destroy kings. And she's not just kind of dogging women in general. She's saying you have to be thoughtful, because when you entrust your heart to someone, they can undermine you. And so you have to consider the character of the person that you are inviting into your life, because they will shape you. And they will shape the rest of your life. And so this wise mother is teaching her son, this is what you can trust. Not beauty, not attractiveness, not fun. You can trust character. And so you have to look for it. How is it that you look for it? How is it that you evaluate people? You know, I was in a church that at times would be kind of cheesy, as most churches can be. And our youth group had this framework for talking about people as they were a Boaz or they were a Ruth. And they would go around and labeling people. Oh, he's a Boaz. In other words, he's a catch. Or she's a Ruth, she's a catch. But when you ask them what that meant, I don't think most people had read the book of Ruth. It was just something that they kind of put onto people, basically saying they were cute and they were fun. But when we're talking about this idea of character, it'd be helpful to nail down what exactly that character looks like. And that's really what this mom is doing in this passage. Is she's saying to her son, look for character. She's dropping breadcrumbs. She's giving landmarks and saying, these are signs of good character. And so she gives some examples of flaws to watch out for. And if you notice, the flaws that she talks about are in the God. This is one passage, and she starts out talking about, here's some flaws that you need to watch out for, my son. Things that I don't want you to have in your character. So look in verse 4. The mother says, it's not for kings, O Lemuel. It's not for kings to drink wine or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Here she's calling her son to self-control. She's not saying that wine is never allowable, but she is saying you do not want your character to be one where you seek after your pleasure, you seek after yourself in a way that undermines your life, that undermines your greater calling. A king is called to rule on behalf of others. A king is called to lead. But if the king is drunk, he can't take care of others, more or less take care of himself. And so this mom is bringing this picture of the way that the person deals with alcohol as a sign of look for someone who has self-control. Are they driven by what is on the outside, or are they driven by their character on the inside? And this is something that we see as a sign of good character. You can see character in the way that people handle alcohol. If someone cannot handle alcohol, it demonstrates a lack of character around self-control. If someone doesn't honor your physical boundaries, that's a demonstration of a lack of self-control. If they aren't respectful of no's, that demonstrates a lack of self-control. And those are red flags that you need to pause and explore. If they cannot control their desires, they cannot control themselves. If they cannot control themselves, they cannot care for you. And so this mom says, you need to watch out and say, you need to have self-control. But she also says, how is it that you find joy? A lot of what drives our lack of self-control is a lack of joy. We look for something in this world to distract us from our pain, distract us from our hurt. And the wise woman points this out to us in verses 6 and 7. She says, give strong drink to the one who is perishing and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. There she's saying that the reason that some people turn to alcohol is because they lack joy. In their distress, they think that this will rescue me. In their sadness or their frustration or their anxiety, they think that alcohol will rescue them, but it won't. They lack joy. I had a friend one time in college say to me, Chuck, how do you have fun without drinking? And I didn't feel embarrassed or attacked by that question. I felt compassion for this friend. Because that told me that they didn't have joy. They couldn't have joy unless they found it external. This mom wants her son to have a deeper joy than wine can bring, a deeper joy than an external life can We want people who will come alongside us when we are down and be able to encourage us. We want people that aren't looking to the outside world to find joy, but have a deeper internal character of joy that is grounded in God, because those kind of people won't look to us to make them happy. That is a burden you don't want to carry, to make someone happy. We need people who have a deep, abiding joy that comes from God, that we can come alongside and point them back to, remind them, which they need to have within them. Not only that, she calls her son to a life of goodness, seeking out justice. In verse 8, she says, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. She wants her son to pursue good, to look after those who can't speak up for themselves, to look after the poor. And this is what we want in the people around us. We want them to have a concern about good things, a concern about holiness in their own, trying to grow. Lives of others, are they caring for their friends? Are they praying for people? A care for their community? Are they concerned about those who are poor, those who are impacted by the challenges of life? Do they have a kindness around them? But not only does she want her son to be good, she wants him to be faithful in the way that he acts out into the world. So in verse 9, she says, open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. She wants her son to speak up and act when there's an injustice, to do something and not just talk about it. She wants him to stick with people when it costs him. When his friends are going through a hard time, is the person that you're interested in pull away from you for a season so that they can push into their life? And do you want that? Do you free them up? Say, yes, go, care for them. That's a faithful friend. That's someone that has good character. But she also unpacks this in talking about the character of the woman. This woman has the heart of patience. In verse 16, it says she considers a field and buys it. And with the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. A vineyard doesn't bear fruit for at least 5 years, at least. And it's usually not profitable for at least a decade, if not longer. And this woman took the time to consider a field. And after looking and evaluating, then she plants a vineyard, which is a long-term horizon. She's really patient in the way that she is thinking about how to live her life. And we need to see patience in the character of the people that we date. Do they get mad at you without taking time to understand the situation? Are they rash in their judgment? She's also wanting to show her son that this woman is kind in the way that she acts. It says the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. If we are trusting our character to someone, if we're trusting our heart, we want them to be kind with us, right? Because we know that we struggle, we know that we're going to mess up. And this woman, when she speaks and teaches, does it with kindness, not criticism. Not, that was stupid, why would you do that? But kindness. Oh, I can understand how easy it would be to do that. What can I do to help? Is the person that you're thinking about dating regularly critical towards others? Do they gossip about others? Do they speak poorly about others that don't meet their standards? Do they mock people who are less fortunate? Or do they have compassionate hearts towards them? Kindness is something to look for. But this woman is not just strong, but she's also gentle. It says she opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. That opens her hand is a language that's often associated with prayer. The reaching out her hands to the needy is a picture that's associated with physically giving an alms in need. This person sees those that are in need, and she has a compassionate heart towards them and gently comes and both cares for their soul and their body. We need people who are like this to us, that care for us, soul and body. But ultimately, this woman has this abiding trait around her of love. It says that she looks well to the ways of her household. She does her husband good and not harm all the days of her life. She's a strong woman, but the strength that she has is not for herself. The strength of her character isn't to enrich her own life primarily, but it's to enrich the life of her community, her family, and her husband. And that's a mark of love, right? That she brings her strength and sacrifice towards others. She initiates towards others to bring good blessing into their life. And so when we're thinking about the people that we want to date, it's not just I feel love for them. Do I have that chemical thing going? But are they a loving person? Do they treat their community with love? Do they treat their family with love? Do they treat their roommates with love? Do they treat their friends with love? Because that's going to tell you whether or not they will treat you with love. And that's why we need to date with a sense of the people's community. We can't just date with them alone, or we will never see their character come out. We need to see them with their friends. We need to see them at work. We need to see them with their family. We need to see them with their roommates. We need to see them with our friends, because that's how we'll begin to see their character. You can see a person from the way that they treat those around them. They act with love towards others. Now, perhaps you've kind of picked up what I was doing as I described character. And what I think is here in this passage is, well, all attributes I picked up in this text are fruit of the Spirit. Things that Paul talks about in Galatians chapter 5, when he describes what it looks like to have your character shaped by God. You see, this is a beautiful thing to realize. Your character is the fruit of God's life and in you. This woman's character, again, was not formed by self-will, but formed by God's will in her. And this helps us so much because a lot of times when we think about dating, it's a fearful thing because we think that we're being evaluated by an unknown person and unknown standards. We're like walking blind in the world, like, I hope that I'm looking good to somebody. I hope that somebody finds me attractive, and I don't know what attractive means to them, but I hope that I'm it. And that can be a fearful thing. But if your attractiveness is depending on exterior qualities like charm and beauty or personality, then you're stuck with the cultural shifting standards on beauty and random people that you have to meet. But the beautiful thing that this passage reminds us is that your attractiveness is not how you look. Your attractiveness is not your charm. What makes you beautiful is what God is doing in you. And so that frees you from blaming yourself for not being acceptable, blaming yourself for not being attractive, freeing yourself from the fear of not knowing what you can do to make yourself more attractive to someone. And it also frees you from the chains that can come onto your life if you think that you were married because of your beauty or because of your charm or because of your strength or because of your career or your money or anything like that. Those things become burdens that you have to carry to keep that person's love. But the beautiful thing about character is if it's formed by God, it's freeing to you. Because you know what makes you beautiful is not the exterior, but the interior. Not what you do, but what God has done for you. Because at the heart, the fear of the Lord is the trust that the most perfect being in the universe finds you attractive. The most perfect being in the universe says, I want you in my life. And we see that in the scripture because the main image in the Bible of God's love for his people is marriage. Why is it? It's because that's the way that God is saying to you, I want you in my life. Paul draws on this in Ephesians chapter 5 when he says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. This is what Jesus does for you, right? He sees you so beautifully that he gives his life for you. He laid down his life for you. Why? So that he could make you even more glorious, even more beautiful. Now, tell me, what do you want as the number one thing driving your life? The sense that Jesus finds you beautiful, that the God of the universe, the judge of the universe has said of you that you are glorious, or whether some guy thinks you're attractive in a bar. When you have the fear of the Lord at the heart of your dating, it frees you from all the anxiety, but it also helps you to know what will grow you in your beauty. that is Jesus, shaping you, bringing you to the place to present to himself you and your splendor. And this is a good example to us of what we also want to see in the person of God. Someone who has that same fear of the Lord, who knows they're not perfect, but knows the way to get perfect. Jesus changing. Who has grace deep in their heart because they know that's how they are attractive. And so it's going to be what they value in you, not the external, but the internal work of Jesus in your life. This passage is calling us to not be deceived by beauty or charm, the way that we look, the way that we act in this world, but to ground what we're looking for in others and in ourselves, in the character being shaped by Jesus. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for these words, the wise mother who gave them to her son so that we could even learn. Continue to help us to understand and to live these things out. We pray this for Jesus' sake. Amen.